The sun was just beginning to sink behind the hills when Greg finally crossed into Nevada. He'd been on the road for 11 hours straight, pushing through a headache, caffeine shakes, and the gnawing emptiness that had haunted him since Denver. His rig groaned as he took a curve, headlights spilling over cracked asphalt and dusty signage. The radio fizzled with static. No stations, no music, just the hum of the engine and the long, endless stretch of highway. He preferred it that way lately: silence, white noise, anything to keep his mind from drifting too far back. Greg had been driving long haul since the accident. It was easier to stay in motion than sit still. Stillness meant thinking. Stillness meant remembering. He passed a rusted sign. Exit 41 to 2 miles. He blinked. There was no exit 41. He'd driven this stretch of Highway 68 a dozen times in the past 2 years. He knew every diner, every stop, every crappy motel. There had never been an exit 41. He reached for his GPS. Nothing. Just the blinking blue triangle on a gray void. No roads. No names. Another sign came into view. Exit 41 next right. A fresh green sign. No bullet holes. No rust. Brand new. Greg slowed. As he approached, a slip road emerged from the darkness like it had always been there. Cleanly paved. Painted lines still bright. He hesitated. His fuel gauge hovered just above E. He flicked on his turn signal and exited. The off-ramp was smooth and quiet, leading to a 2-lane road flanked by dense pine trees. The sky darkened quickly, stars just beginning to prick through the dusk. After a mile or so, a single neon sign buzzed to life ahead. Pine Rest Motel, vacancy. Below it, a diner sat bathed in warm yellow light. 3 cars in the parking lot. A gas station across the road. Greg pulled in. His truck hissed to a stop. The place was dead silent. No insects. No wind. Just the low hum of the motel sign flickering above. He climbed out and stretched, bones popping, muscles aching. The air smelled like rain and pine needles. He walked toward the diner. Just before reaching the door, a small voice stopped him. "Hi, mister." He turned. A little boy stood beside the motel ice machine. He was maybe 8, barefoot, in pajamas, staring at Greg with wide brown eyes. Greg's heart skipped. The kid looked just like. No, it couldn't be. He stepped closer. "Are you lost, buddy?" The boy shook his head slowly. "You don't remember me, do you?" he said softly. Greg froze. His breath caught. The edges of his vision darkened. "What did you say?" But the boy was already gone. Not walked away. Not ran. Gone. The air felt heavier. The motel door creaked open behind him. A woman in her 50s stepped out. Gray hair in a tight bun. Apron smeared with flour. She smiled like she'd known him forever. "Room's ready for you, Greg." He hadn't booked anything. He hadn't given his name. Greg swallowed. "How do you know me?" She turned back toward the office. "You always stop here, eventually." Greg stood frozen outside the Pine Rest Motel, staring at the woman's back as she disappeared into the front office. Her words echoed in his mind. "You always stop here, eventually." He wasn't sure why, but he followed her inside. The lobby smelled like cinnamon and something faintly metallic. There was no computer on the desk, just an old guestbook and a rotary phone that looked untouched for decades. A ticking clock above the counter showed the wrong time, 2:41 a.m., though it was barely 7:30 p.m. The woman slid a key across the desk. "Room 7. It's already warm. Breakfast's at 6 sharp." Greg didn't move. "I didn't pay for anything," he said. Her smile never faltered. "You will. One way or another." A chill crept down his spine. He picked up the key. Outside, The night had grown unnaturally quiet. The neon buzz had stopped. The gas station across the road was now completely dark, even though it had been lit moments earlier. The cars in the parking lot were gone. He turned to check his truck. Still there. He walked toward room 7. The path was lined with small garden lights that flickered in and out like they were unsure whether to work or not. The door to his room opened with a creak, revealing an old but clean interior, plaid bedspread, TV from the 90s, faded painting of mountains above the bed. He locked the door behind him and sat on the edge of the mattress. His hands were shaking. That boy. That face. The same face he hadn't seen since. A knock. He jumped. Another knock. Faster this time. Urgent. Greg stood slowly and moved to the door. Peered through the peephole. Nothing. He opened it. The hallway was empty. Then he heard it. A whisper, coming from behind him. Dad, why didn't you look for me? He turned, breath caught in his throat. There, standing in the middle of the room, was the boy again. Pale, still barefoot, eyes filled with something ancient. Something not childlike. Greg stumbled back. You're not real. The boy tilted his head. Aren't I? Greg blinked. The boy was gone again. The door slammed shut on its own. The lights flickered. The TV turned on, static blaring. Greg grabbed his bag and turned for the door. But it wouldn't open. No matter how hard he pulled, it held tight. Deadbolted from the inside, he took a shaky breath and looked around. Everything was vibrating. The walls, the air, even the floor. Then, the lights cut out. Total darkness. And in that darkness, a voice not his own whispered from the corner. Now you remember. Greg scrambled for the bedside lamp, knocking it over in the process. He found his phone in his pocket, but the screen was black. No light, no power. The air felt thick, like he was breathing through wool. Then the voice spoke again. You left me. You said you'd be right back. Greg's chest tightened. That voice wasn't just familiar, it was identical to his son's the last time they spoke. He tried to steady his breath. This isn't real, he muttered. This is a nightmare. I'm exhausted. The static from the TV came back, louder now. Images flickered. A face in the snow. A child's shoe. A mangled guardrail. Greg stared in horror as it all unfolded like a memory caught on loop. He dropped to his knees. No, I looked for you. I searched for weeks. The boy appeared again at the foot of the bed. You stopped. You let them tell you I was gone. Greg shook his head violently. I didn't. I never stopped feeling you were alive. Then why didn't you come here sooner? Greg blinked. What do you mean, here? The boy pointed to the wall. Greg turned. The wall was gone. In its place was a vast road, shrouded in mist, stretching endlessly in both directions. And on it, shadows moved. Slowly. Walking toward him, he stepped through the opening. The ground crunched beneath his boots like dead leaves, though it had been pavement just a second ago. The boy was ahead of him now, moving without sound. Greg followed. They passed vehicles, wrecked and rusted, some still with headlights dimly flickering. And within each, a driver sat unmoving, their eyes open but hollow. Watching. Greg didn't dare look too long. As they walked, signs appeared on the roadside. Bent metal. Faded words. Turn around. Too late now. He waits where you left him. Where are we going? Greg asked, voice cracking. The boy didn't turn around. Back to where it ended. Then he stopped. Ahead, the mist thinned, revealing a narrow bridge over a ravine. Greg's heart seized in his chest. He knew this place. It was where his son's car had gone off the road. But no bridge had been there before, just a sheer drop. He remembered the search teams, the divers, the weeks of grief. And now it stood before him, rebuilt, waiting. The boy turned to him. "You have one chance, Dad. One way to fix it." Greg took a step forward, then another. "What do I have to do?" The boy's eyes shimmered. "Remember everything. Then choose." Suddenly, Greg was back in the truck. Alone. But his GPS blinked with new coordinates. Exit 41. And beneath it, flashing in red. "Take it this time." The engine rumbled beneath Greg's feet, but the world outside his windshield had shifted. The familiar highway stretched before him, yet it felt like a copy, like someone had rebuilt it from a dream. He didn't question it anymore. Exit 41 loomed in the distance, its green sign glowing unnaturally under the gray sky. The exit had never existed on any map. He knew that, but here it was, beckoning. He turned the wheel. The ramp curved steeply downward, leading into a narrow road lined with dying trees. Their twisted limbs arched overhead like skeletal fingers. The deeper he drove, the dimmer the world became, until it felt like twilight swallowed the day. His GPS was dead again, but the truck kept going, as though it too knew where to go. Soon, Greg found himself pulling into a clearing. At the center stood a wooden shack, small, old, but strangely intact. A sign above the door read, "Lost and Found." Greg stepped out. The wind whispered through the trees. A cold silence pressed in from all sides. As he approached the shack, the door creaked open before he touched it. Inside was a single counter. Behind it, an old man sat with a register and a lamp that flickered. "You're late," the man said without looking up. Greg blinked. "You know me." The man finally lifted his eyes. "Everyone who comes here left someone behind." Greg's mouth went dry. "I didn't mean to." "Doesn't change the result," the man said flatly. "You left. He stayed. I want him back." The man slid a ledger forward. "Then it's time to settle the debt." Greg leaned in. The pages were filled with names, dates, and locations, accidents, disappearances, tragedies. And his name, Greg Holloway. Debt owed, one soul. The man handed him a pen. "Sign and remember everything." Greg hesitated. "What happens if I don't?" The man smiled for the first time. It was not warm. "Then he fades. And so do you." Greg signed. And the world broke open. Memories rushed back. Moments he had repressed. The fight they had before the accident. The voicemail he ignored. The day he stopped searching. The shack dissolved into mist. He stood again on the bridge from earlier. The boy waited. "I remember," Greg said, voice trembling. The boy nodded. "Then come with me." Greg stepped forward, and felt the world tilt. The road began to collapse behind them. Metal and stone turning to ash. "Run!" the boy shouted. They sprinted. Greg grabbed his son's hand, and for a second, it was real, warm, alive. They leapt together into the fog ahead as the bridge crumbled. And landed. On gravel. The truck was there. So was daylight. The boy stood beside him, solid, breathing. Greg fell to his knees, overwhelmed. "Are we back?" he asked. The boy smiled faintly. "You chose right." Then he was gone. But not like before. Greg felt peace now, not emptiness. And on the GPS, exit 41 was gone. But a new route appeared. Home.